Welcome to the virtual lunch. Today is Wednesday, November 24th, and this is virtual lunch number 441. Our guest today is Sheila Dusseau, the head of global legal operations for Ferring Pharmaceuticals, and this is part of our continuing series on understanding new law with Calexius. Hi, Sheila. How you doing?
Hi, I am doing great.
Sheila, tell us about your background and your role at Ferring Pharmaceuticals.
So I was in finance my entire career. And I was actually at a manufacturing company where I was a controller of a large division at that company. It was in the US. And then we acquired a small business and I got to be the CFO of that small business in addition to the controller role. And then realized how much I loved being a part of the business, the operations of it, and being able to be strategic and work with the CEO on his focus and his strategy for the business, and then work with my colleagues on how we operated the business and what we did. I got an email from a company in Switzerland that was also looking for almost the same thing as NCR 10 years earlier, and I deleted it. And a few days later, my husband said, "Did you see that email from that company in Switzerland?" And I said, yeah, I deleted it. Why? And he said, "Well, why don't you just go ahead and respond?" And fast forward, we've been in Switzerland for a little over 2 years. And I came to Ferring as their very first legal ops person. So that was an adventure, but it was a chance to do it and do it right. So coming into NCR, I did it there and built it up to other people's expectations and specifications. And then I had to go out and learn and make lots of mistakes. And so it was intriguing to me to start over again, somewhere where I knew that I could do it and do it right and could make a difference and bring value to the company.
When you started at Ferring, it was the first time they had legal operations. So you basically had to start from scratch. Do you think it was easier because you could basically make it your own? Or do you think it might have been easier to have some sort of structure in place that you could try to tailor? Or was it just, okay, here's a white piece of paper, you do it?
It would have been easier to be the second thing that you said, to have a structure. It absolutely would have been. As I said earlier about when I hire people, they have to love a challenge. And I'm the same way. If I'm not learning something new every day, then I should get a different job. So I looked at it that way, but honestly, I came in the door a little bit with that first attitude that you mentioned of, I've done this before, I know how to do it, I know the recipe, and let me do that. And then I was reminded really quick that it's not something you can just pick up from one place and plop down in another and it's going to work perfectly. Every team's different. Everyone has different expectations. And so having done it before helped a lot, because I could speak to others confidently. I could share my experiences confidently. And when I had resistance, I was careful not to shove my expectations or what I wanted on them. And I've made that mistake before, thinking I just knew everything in that position. And so I was really careful from that. But then I also did have that comfort of, okay, I've encountered this before. I know what works and what doesn't work. The really hard part was figuring out how to get that in place. And so it wasn't a change in the formula. It was more, where does the formula fit perfectly? And where do I need to work with others to customize the formula a bit? And that was what's really challenging. And it's probably the better part of 2 years that it's taken to feel comfortable in that, and that, okay, I can look back now and see that what we've got in place is pretty much the same vision I had when I was interviewing. I had to adjust it a lot in the delivery and the timing for this. So yeah, absolutely. If I had come in and my CLO and said, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, I've already talked to everybody and they all accept it and they're happy with it, that would have been wonderful. Legal services don't fit within a purchase order. It's not legal services, not gadgets or widgets, but most companies rely on purchase orders for every purchase, and Ferring did as well. And so when I came in, I was just telling him, I remember sitting in my garage, doing a garage sale, getting ready to move to Switzerland, trying to sell everything off, but I'm working remotely already for Ferring. And I'm on the phone with him and he mentioned something about, but we have to do these purchase orders. So make sure when you come here, you have a plan for getting all these purchase orders done for all the law firms. And My reaction was, that's silly. We shouldn't be using purchase orders. We should just easily just go, no, finance, we're not going to do purchase orders. And he immediately put me in my place about it and said, it's not that easy. And no, we need purchase orders. It's just how it is and whatever. So I came into the door, literally moved to Switzerland, and on my mind, charging in the door was, I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them that a world without purchase orders is so much better. Over time in that first year, I learned really quickly that we weren't ready for that. We didn't have all the right systems and processes in place to support a non-purchase order environment. We didn't have the right partners on board to support that. We didn't have the right compliance checks. It took a little bit of humble pie on my part and realizing that. And then this conversation with myself of, it's not personal and it's not that the company's bad and they don't know what they're doing. It's just not the right time and place for that change. And it's still a good idea. There's still lots of merit to it, but figure out how to do it the right way so that when you do it, it's accepted and it's celebrated and it's embraced. And so we've done that just this year. It took all of 2019 into 20 to really understand the process and what we're doing. And so we started at the beginning of this year with all the steps needed. And then just a couple of months ago, we got the permission from our CFO to get an exception to not having to use purchase orders for all of legal services, which is a massive thing. And my CLO and I were joking about that today, about it happened finally. It was so hard to get done this year. We had to do so much. So he was congratulating me on it, but I was laughing about, I felt like a failure at first because I couldn't do it right away. And I learned a lot and I grew a lot in realizing that don't just walk away, don't just give up because somebody said no. Sometimes it's just take a step back, adapt, figure it out to do it a different way, and then overcome. And that's what we did. In the US, I found that change management many times was driven by ego. So sometimes you just had to figure out different ways that people feel comfortable with things. And many times it was their personal ego. And just had a conversation recently about a team here in Switzerland and some difficulties we're having with change management. And they offered up that the European culture doesn't handle things the same way that Americans do. And they were explaining, and I won't sing a lot of certain culture, but they were explaining the different cultures in the team that I was dealing with and how there's just a lot of things that are very deep-seated. And so when I come and I approach the entire team who are all European from different places, that approach didn't work with the whole team. And so this person was being helpful and letting me know, okay, with the Polish person here and the Danish person here, you've got to separate, you've got to do something entirely different. And then with the Irish person, it's totally different. So it's a new dimension to change management and to personal growth. At first, some of the American thing, I was thinking I needed to adjust and I needed to hide or just bury or mute the American part. And then I realized, well, what the hell, we are who we are, and I shouldn't do that. I should be proud of who I am. But I did get these weird reactions from people and crazy comments that people would make at lunch in a group that would be really offensive to any of us Americans on the call. And that's why my first reaction was to do that. Okay, maybe when I have that meeting with that same person and their team, I should really mute who I am. I should try to change my accent. And for a long time, I did find myself doing that, trying to erase my Southern accent. And then I started realizing, no, that's who I am. I was hired for who I am. And I've never had to change that in the past. Instead, I need to rely on my experience. I need to rely on the things that have worked and the things that I've learned that didn't work. And I need to be transparent about that. That was really the most important thing, was not changing anything at all, but letting that work speak for me and sharing the experiences, but not shoving it down people's throat as in I've done this before and I know it's the right way. More, yeah, I've been here before and here's how I solved it then. Let's talk about whether or not that would work for you. Using both of that, the experience and the openness together.
Sheila Dusseau, everybody. Wonderful, wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on the virtual lunch. Thanks so much to Calexius for supporting this series on understanding new law. I wish you and your family a great Thanksgiving. And of course, the same to everyone who's joined us today.